Taylor Meadows. First Amended.
Oh, come on. Our table's got
Might go
less
right off.
level.
Might go right off the end if you do that. That's a big-
No. We have Taylor Meadows.
This is just a replat. They increased one of the lots from 5.5 acres to 13.4.
They build a shop over the line. The developer.
Built his shop over the line.
Yeah.
So it's property to shop on. Do they have to?
He
Now it's gonna
no,
be, he owns it all.
He
but-
owned it, it just wasn't platted, you know, it to be included as part of his platted lot, so.
This one down off of First East.
It's also
25th,
25th, just down past the golf course.
if you were to
Oh,
extend
okay.
73rd.
Yeah.
East, you'd be there.
Okay.
There's 3 copies of it there. You only sign the top sheet, that's why they're separated the way they are.
Not the top two.
Top 3.
Depends on-
I brought it if you want it. That one seemed to work okay, so.
That's in. Thank you. Nothing.
Heavy enough.
The practice is going for the next Olympics.
Next on the agenda is just a Bear Creek Road update. Keller Associates, they are ready to stamp the plans. They have updated the cost, for the first slide area. They've got a updated cost of $743,700. And for the upstream area, based on completed design, it's another $420,000. For all of the fixes up and down the road, that adds another $2.8 million.
Adds another 2.8.
Yes,
So we're
if
three,
well,
$4 million.
just over 4 million is what the engineer's estimate is. On the rest of that stuff downstream, I think probably the easier option is just let it slough off. Go back to the original width
Asphalt and
and let it do what it's gonna do, cause where it's cracking,
is that
was-
the add-on width?
yeah, it is the add-on width. So you end up with a narrower road. But,
See, 22 is just a better number.
22 to 24, I mean, anyway, that's the update on Bear Creek.
So total, what was it?
So the first main slide was 743,700.
Mhm.
The second upstream of that is 420,000. That's what the engineer
So
estimated.
Forest Service was talking.
800.
The first slide.
Yeah, well, they were talking the first slide plus a little bit, so they were talking to us about approximately $825,000 is what supposedly they. would
So
have.
I was wrong when I said double that number and we'll be short. Well, I guess I was right when I said double that number.
For the
we'll be
whole
short,
thing,
but
yeah. Again, they're ready to stamp the plans and ready to start process of bidding that when we tell them to go.
I don't know how much the delay is related to all the Rangers retiring the same day and all of the changes in the. I don't know if any of the delays related to that. Colby hasn't gotten an answer from
Yeah.
anybody. So,
And I think what we heard was it just was stalled out in DC where the funds have been frozen, but it could be tied up with it. Everybody being forced into retirement too, so.
3 days after the new Ranger had taken office, he hadn't heard anything from her, so.
Yeah. We've been
We'll see.
trying to meet with them too and talk about getting some material out there close to Table Rock Campground. And putting on the roads and Colby thinks that we probably are okay doing it, but she wants to meet with us too, because Colby's not necessarily the one that can authorize
Authorized
that.
to make that decision.
Yeah.
They're all about that, aren't they?
Yeah,
So I drove up, Blowout. Is that on our grading list for them this year? No, it wasn't last
I
year.
don't-
I know we do it every couple of years.
yeah. I don't know, I haven't heard.
Heard of that? Yeah. I can ask Wes.
Forest roads.
That's on the Kyle's list.
And the reason I ask is there's 2 spots that when whoever they had with a shovel, they turned loose up there, dug a couple of drainages so that it wouldn't hold water on the road. It drained past. And I think both of those that are holding water spots probably solved with the grader so that
Yeah.
that edge isn't where it holds water.
We can check into that.
4 years ago, and I think my skid steer up was done it. My father telling me about it. That's what happened then. And I'm not shoveling.
Next, we wanted to talk just a little bit about some of the funds for planning and design for transfer station and Peterson Hill landfill and solid waste, so. We have some existing funds in the current year's budget that we are not probably going to expend. We have $6.5 million in there that was there for the flare station. And construction of that and possibly a pond. We haven't got to where the flare station is being bid out yet, and so most likely it won't happen in this budget year. But we think, we're going through the budgeting process right now, of course, but we do have $6.5 million in capital construction in solid waste that we haven't expended. That we would like to take some of that and try to get an architect on board with design of a new transfer station or an engineer on board and try to start that process. And start heading down that road, because we're afraid by the time it gets done and operational, it's already too late.
Was it strategic planning that you didn't update us on the updates to the existing transfer station before you dove into let's spend money on a planning for a new transfer?
Well, this
station?
is an additional
Five.
station, not just a name, so the planning that.
I just
we
want to make
did-
sure we're not gonna need any of that money to finish fixing and updating the existing transfer station.
So the
we
existing
started.
transfer station, yeah, there's some other funds available for that. That we're going to need to spend for fixing the floor, but in next year's budget is the next time we need money for the downstairs compactors. And that's gonna be on my budget request. There's $2.2 million that needs to be spent next year for those compactors downstairs.
So the stuff they're doing right now, right, because it's closed, yeah, flooring, It's coming out of this budget, right?
Yes, it'll come out of this year's
And what was
budget.
that supposed to be?
We don't have, I didn't know that I had an exact amount that they needed to get in there and figure it out.
Well, yeah, they had to get in there and figure it out first, so. To see without, they have to clean it completely out and then go in and inspect all the seams, so without having that information. He just kind of blanketed a bit of about, and I think it was 70-some thousand. And that should cover it, but then they'll back off as they see the, the need, so he overbid it. And overestimated the time so that we could for sure have enough time if we had some serious issues.
So this is day 3 then, right? Or
Yeah,
is that done? I mean, so where are they at with that?
well, they're about halfway.
Okay,
Yeah,
Halfway
So they're
getting it.
on schedule.
halfway getting it cleaned out or halfway getting it
No, no,
inspected?
we're cleaning
Welding
out.
it back.
They've got the floor gouged out yesterday. They had a welder in there all day yesterday working around the holes. And then, the other kids were gouging the floor out where the cracks are, and then so they have a robotic welder that they use to weld those seams. And they were just getting it set up this morning to start doing those long seams. So they're on schedule. They should,
Getting some pictures and video of that.
yeah, we can,
We should.
but they will, as long as, they get that welder going and going. They've had all the material there and they were getting it set up this morning to get it going. So they had done a practice pass on one of the smaller ones last night. But they were just getting it dialed in then, so. But they're, for watching them in the past, they are on schedule or probably a little ahead of schedule. We did find one bigger crack that we didn't expect. We figured on some small ones here and there, but they did find another break in the sheets that are closer to the pit, so. That's gonna take us a little bit extra time, but they had it all gouged out and they were ready to weld it last night, so.
So he's still thinking maybe Saturday again or not till next week?
Oh, yeah, they'll be done. Hopefully we can reopen on Friday
Friday.
sometime.
It'd be good.
Awesome. And then stuff you're talking about is where you get rid of the initial compactor, right?
So downstairs, the initial compactors, taking them out, putting a new one in and stuff, that's the 2.2 million.
That we talked about.
But then we're also talking
That's
about
the-
an additional transfer station.
Finish update for this one.
Yeah,
This one
In a
will be-
completely different
But This
location.
is a different.
no, it'll be essentially right next door
Okay,
to the existing transfer station. It's just a different type and one that we've been talking about for 4 or 5 years now.
And it'll consist of a totally different admin building similar to the one that Road and Bridge currently has. We'll have to move our scale house in. So we'll demo the scale house we currently have. We'll move in off of the highway a little bit more. And we'll put in an additional scale. And then that traffic will come off that scale and still go in the commercial side. The public will still follow the same traffic patterns. But the commercial will come off that scale, turn and head the way that they do now currently, but the new transfer station will be built on the other side of between the existing transfer station and the search and rescue building there in that grassy area. And then, so they'll turn in this way, take a left instead of following into the building, and then that facility will sit right there, and we'll use that natural contour of that hill for the tunnel.
okay.
And we won't have compactors in this new building, it'll just be top load. Like, Rexburg has, Jackson. A little bit different design, a little bit different setup. But we'll be able to handle the traffic more. We won't have that backup on Saturdays and any of that. And then when we do have to shut the current transfer station down, we'll have another facility to deal with the public. We'll still have to send the commercial to the hill, but we would be able to deal, provide that service.
So what do you expect the engineering costs can be?
Good question. Without sending an RFP out, I don't know.
Is this all part of that long-term capital projects that we build into that spreadsheet? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And is it slated for next year? Is that?
No.
Well, it was
It
slated
was at
for,
one time.
and
It
then
got,
Roger kept moving it back a little, and moving it back, trying to make that balance, you know, and so. And the struggle here is if we don't make some adjustments, we're running the current facility to death. And so if we can't take some of the pressure off of that, these rebuilds and these things that we're doing are gonna come more often. We're gonna be shutting down more often and more longer periods in order to do this maintenance stuff, because right now we're running the current facility to death.
So where are fees in balance with not operating costs, but not just operating costs, but
they're not even in balance with operating costs right now.
So last year at 126 at the units that they currently show we had, we generated about $13 million. Our budget this year was 18 million. So we've been stealing money out of our savings account or borrowing money from our savings account. And now we completed that to the point where,
what's the 4.99% increase due to the fees?
what's that?
If we raise the fees, the allowed limit without having to post the fees.
Oh, so the next.
It'd be like 12.5 or something like that,
What was it, 130,
136.
or 3 or 4?
Does that narrow the gap or does that get us?
With the increase in cost and stuff like that, it doesn't narrow the gap.
Right now, we have about $9 million in the bank. And by the time we finish completing our budget, Ron said that would leave us about 2.8 million in cash that we could carry over to the next year. So if we don't make an adjustment to the fees and the units don't come up far enough to offset that, then we're gonna be,
When you say an adjustment to the fees, do you mean larger adjustment than 5%?
yeah, it's gonna have to be huge adjustment. Our current budget right now, if we duplicated last year's budget, your fees would have to be, and we used our current landfill unit count, your fees would have to be $200 in order to cover the budget. And that's not putting any money away. In 2030, you need to have $10 million in the bank to pay for another landfill sale. So if we continue down this road that we're on right now, you won't have that, you won't even have any money in your savings account to pay for a new sale.
And I know I ask this every time, but I was told for 4 years that Jackson's paying for our cell openings.
Yeah,
If they were
if
paying,
you weren't
going
using their
directly into
revenue
savings.
to keep our current budget running, yes, they would be. But last year with the current fee, you had $13 million in revenue come in, or plus
well,
the
so
$3.8 million that we collect from Jackson and all those other people is what's keeping us afloat. You're not putting any of that money away. We are not putting it, it's not you, we are not putting any of that money away.
So Ron was looking at that and he was adjusting those fees on that spreadsheet last year and he was looking at it as far as he put in $200 for that and saw what that did. And it started looking like by 2030, we would have the $10 million. If you dumped the 200 or 210 or whatever it was he was trying to put in, and then increase that every year through 2030. Then you start being able to put some of that money aside.
So having a new transfer station that doesn't have a compactor, is that gonna fill the landfill faster?
No,
It does,
no. No, basically all that is, when you top load, you tromp, so you use a different style trailer, so you can tromp the garbage, so you can get your loads up to weight. And then the actual compactor that runs on the hill is what does your compaction.
Oh.
And the new tandem machine is doing
Yeah, it's bigger. so
better
the
than that
compaction
old
is
one.
better.
Better, so.
And we may not have to build a new cell, you know, if we get this alternative daily cover thing going and some of that kind of stuff, that prolongs the need. So the further we can push that back, obviously, the better, but for a planning, we need to have that money readily available in 2030 to build another cell. I mean, that's the repetition, the progression that we followed. We've always been able to suck a year or two extra out of our landfill cells out over what the engineer estimated, but this year where DEQ's on us a lot harder on our cover, we're probably not going to be able to suck that out of there if we don't get some kind of an alternative daily cover figured out, and so that we're not using as much soil. So that's kind of where we're at. That's why with that question about the units, you know, every time those units go up, then the landfill fee doesn't have to be as much to offset that. But for right now, if we're using the numbers that we currently have from last year, 200, it's gonna be like 18 million. So it would cover, but you're not putting anything away.
So I've been doing a little bit of research just as we've been sitting here, but it looks like most other jurisdictions, counties charge their household unit fee to each unit. So if it's a 12-unit apartment complex, that building pays 12 household unit fees to the landfill. If it's a
That's
4-unit
right.
complex, they pay
So
4
why aren't we that way?
household
What do we
unit
need to be
fees to the
doing to do
landfill.
it that way?
Right.
So I think that would help some. We need to try to figure that out. And then the other thing, and I know I've brought this up before, and I don't know if there's any way to track this, but you look at the number of people throughout the county who have more than one trash receptacle at their house. I don't know how you would ever get a hold of that unless you could work with the companies that are picking up the trash to get a list of the number of cans that they have at each home. Because isn't the household unit is just based off of them having the one normal size can, right?
That's what it's based off of.
So you drive through my neighborhood, and I've told you this before, but probably 50% of the homes have 2 or 3 cans.
Yeah.
So if we could work with Dump It and PSI and all these companies to say, hey, somehow we need to get a list of when you're giving somebody an additional can over and above 1 and figure out how to charge them an additional household unit, I think that would. I mean, maybe they decide we don't want another can anymore, but I don't know how you deal with that. I just feel like there's a lot of missed opportunity there.
Well, our household units are based on some magic formula for the amount of garbage that an average household produces. But when you have large complexes that are old married or singles that aren't doing that, and then apartment complexes with lots of young families that produce more garbage.
It's kind of like
you
the school.
do that by census instead of by address.
I mean, if you look at the way the school taxes, I guess. I don't have any kids in school, but I still pay the school tax. When I had kids in school.
We were building the
somebody else-
infrastructure.
Somebody else made.
Our kids were going to school and our grandparents' taxes.
So, yeah, so that's kind of the way the landfill fee was kind of established where
Right, and do we
everybody's gonna pay the same and.
I
Some of
mean,
us are gonna pick up.
I think if you taxed each apartment unit individually and with the new homes and new growth, and this is just me. Kind of knowing in my head what's going on, but I think there's $400,000 on the table right there, just from this last year in development.
Yeah. Boy.
That I think is in these
That's
apartment complexes, a lot of that is probably getting left on the table because they're just paying the commercial fee for the. To dump the container, right?
That's what they.
I guess it depends on, there again, that's a use thing. So if that can's getting dumped, so if they have, say they have a 3-yard can. And it's getting, so that's 3, so you take that, so the magic formula is 3 times 2. And then times how many times it gets dumped, so.
What are they
that turns
charged
that
per
into a 6-yard can, and then every time it gets dumped, so you get a 6-yard and you dump it every day. That's 30 units for them,
That they're paying every day
that they're,
Or-
or what they're paying per
per
year.
year, which I still think is gonna be far less because. Most of these apartment complexes have 300 units in them.
Well, but that doesn't mean that they'll only have 1 can.
No, so that's where you'd have to
300
figure that
units.
out,
Yeah,
but.
with 300 units.
We
you
probably
could
need
have-
to look into that to say, okay, if we charged them the 126. And then just let the cans be placed there. I don't know where you come up with, or do you charge for both? I don't know how you figure that out.
It certainly be more dwelling units.
I would think you'd probably come out ahead on the,
What we need to do
Total
is
number of
find,
units.
maybe go. Are the apartment complexes off of First Street between Pitt and Ammon, are those? city
they're in the
limits?
city of Ammon.
So that's
They're
city of
city of
Ammon,
Yeah,
so we would just have to look at them and see how those are.
Yeah, we
because
can
they-
get the
They already
total
currently
number of
have
units.
dwelling, people dwelling in them, so. we-
If you wanna send me what they're currently
Yeah,
paying
look
or
at that,
what
see.
total units they're currently dumping per year, then I can work with the city to figure out how many total units are in the complex. And we can see what the math will come out as.
If the fee needs to contribute to balance. Our costs, our fees need to cover the cost. We need to get our fees to where they cover the cost.
And that's.
But if we're subsidizing the operations fee with tax dollars, because the fee isn't there. And we raise the fee $80 a household. Then we should be offsetting the tax that we're using to subsidize that, the same thing, and not just burying it in the general fund like Gammon and Idaho Falls and everybody else does. That's our responsibility. We don't just say, oh, look. We just saved $18 million. Let's build a new office. Because that should be fee-based, not tax-based. And if we're subsidizing the taxes, that softens the blow. If we're gonna raise that, and you're gonna say, well, you're gonna raise that, but you're reducing your levy that amount. And this can be a really hard year to do any of that because we're gonna have a revenue shortfall.
Now just so we're clear, that's $200 a year. So that's $20 a month, less than $20.
$16.
Oh, I know, but I'm the one that gets the nasty phone calls from all the people that got their,
I get them too, sir. They tell me every day how they pay my wage.
and,
Yeah.
you know,
Yes.
we solved the problem 4 years ago by doing the math and figuring out that all these commercial folks aren't getting charged and there's a bunch of residential that's not getting charged because they were assuming they were commercial because they were being dumped by dumping. And they weren't getting feed, so.
Yeah, I
They
mean,
raised the hauling fee for Swan Valley a whole bunch and then they turned around and reduced it to a fraction of what it was because that wasn't the right way to do it. The right way was to charge people for what they were using.
Yeah.
Get to the fees.
I think you could get closer with all of this research. I just still think you're gonna have to raise it at some point, but I think
Well,
we'd at least
then
have a
we need to
more
raise it.
accurate representation of what's out there.
Well, and that's why I sent that email to Stephanie this morning was, you know, do you have any estimate of where that unit, where
The
that
number of units,
total
yeah.
units may land this year, but until we get closer to generating the new tax stuff, they don't have that information.
Well, I'll be able to give you a little better idea. I sent some emails, so if I get responses, I'll keep you posted to Ammon and Idaho Falls. I'll probably reach out to Iona too, so.
I know there's some. When you want to announce fees and increase fees and when you don't want to. There's timing related to that, and that's a penny question. Because you don't want to announce a big fee increase right before you send them their tax bill that tells them they're gonna get. A big increase in this and that as well.
Well, in other years, they've done it with essentially the budget hearing. Yeah, the budget hearing in August and
It's buried in the other data.
It's something that that we need to think about.
Yeah, we do, and our fees across the board should pay for the things that are fee based.
And I guess ultimately the decision of whether we build another transfer station or not, you know, kind of falls on you guys. I mean, we've put the information out there, we've brought it many times over the last 5 or 6 years. That need is there, we needed to be planning for it, so. I mean, ultimately, the timing goes and those kind of things, I mean, we're here to help, we'll definitely get you the numbers, we'll do our best with, you know, estimates, that kind of stuff, but
Yeah.
without getting someone on board.
Back to where
To
they
help us
started,
with that.
I think. It's money well spent if we have money setting that's dedicated for it to go ahead and start. The engineering side, so that when we get to the point. We've already moved forward on that. You have an opinion on that?
We need to fix it. We just need to get the fees up. Budget thing
That's why I
requires
went back to the original part of the discussion, which was we have this money and we wanna look at. Paying for the engineering to start the process, because we. You'd have to be blind to know that we don't need a new transfer station.
Yeah.
To saddle with ours, and I think that's a viable plan to build one next to it, so that we have.
Yep.
Overlap, and we don't have to close the doors for people.
Well, and the best
Really
part
doesn't
of
make people happy.
building right next door is your infrastructure is already there.
Yeah.
Your scale is your scale house. You're looking at, if we built that facility, we're looking at maybe an addition of 3 or 4 people to operate it instead of.
Yeah, that's pretty cost effective.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, a new. You know, house and a whole different other facility to have to maintain. So this is a much better plan if we can fit it in there and get some growth built into it. That's probably gonna be one of our biggest. Probably holdbacks there is there may not be enough real estate to build 40% expansion.
Right.
You know, additional into what we current footprint plus 40% more for future expansion, so.
Yeah.
That part right there might be an issue just in the real estate that we currently have there, but. It's a fairly good size, we have measurements off of the building in Jackson. And we've kind of used those to pace that out and plan that out, and it'll fit in there, it'll be tight. It'll fit, but then you've got your infrastructure already there, which is gonna cost way less than trying to build it completely somewhere else, yeah. And we've looked for property in other places and
Splitting
have to go
splitting
way out.
resources.
Yeah.
way out of town somewhere to.
And then we also need to figure out the hatch pit too, right? Cause that's gonna
Yes.
pull some next.
yeah, something that is a big question out there about what to do with it, and where to go and. or open a new one and, yeah. You don't wanna have all of that material that's going out to Hatch Pit have to go up to Peterson landfill,
No.
cause that,
How did the city
Fills up
get the
that.
state's pit over along I-15?
I don't know. I don't know how they got that.
They had reached out to the state about it, I guess. Riverbend had wanted to buy it, but the state has some sort of obligation that they have to offer to another government entity first. So that's how the city ended up with it. That's the short
The answer
version
to
of what
that.
I heard.
It's the short of the long.
Yeah,
So aren't there a couple of state pits along I-15? The other side of 15th and 15th and 25th, or just the other side of 25th,
On I-15.
or 20, sorry, Highway 20.
So I've actually talked to them about those pits and at the time they weren't interested in getting rid of them.
Well, now that they've turned that into divided highway. Was that before or after that divided highway?
That was
project?
only 2 years ago. I asked him about it.
Well, let's ask them again. I'd much rather have a garbage pit just upwind from the state highway than I would a residential neighborhood for hoity-toity folks that don't like garbage smell. Oh, that's Michelle's neighborhood, right?
yeah, I've been working with.
No,
I always, every time Jeff Trosper comes in from HK, I always hit him up about it too, but I don't know if they really have any great locations. Other than the
Jeff-
65th pit, but
Yeah,
they don't
Jeff
seem to want to work on that at
didn't
all.
seem to have anything and I've kind of talked with Knife River before a little bit about it and they were still actively mining stuff. So like, talk to me in 20 years.
no, that
Talk to me
state
in
pit
50
without
years.
Louisville Highway is just a long ways out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Perry Lake, is that Perry?
there's one along there, but then Roadhouse is almost done, but they're getting ready to try to put water in it for recharge up near the county line, so
Oh, yeah.
near our other pit up there. Well, I can ask them about the ones along Highway 20. We
Clarify, yes, we're gonna do the engineering.
please
Yes.
move forward with these
Yeah.
numbers and stuff.
Yes.
Okay.
Make a motion here, just. Is that an action item?
It is on the next.
Okay,
Okay, make a motion that we approve the funding for the planning and design for the transfer station expansion.
second that makes it unanimous.
Let's go over this all-way stop control analysis that Michael Baker did for us. Out of the 4 intersections that they studied, they recommended that 4-way stop be installed on 3 of them. 49th South and 45th East. 65th South and Ammon Road and 15th East and 65th North. That was their recommendation.
Numbers 1, 2, and 3.
That's one where we had the 4 bus crash, right? Number 3.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And 81st was the one where those guys were in here talking about.
Yeah.
What is it, Willow Creek Road, I think it was.
Yeah, and that one, they did not recommend changing. It didn't meet the crash.
Willow Creek's paved now, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I've tried not back a long time, but saying on the 15th to 5th used to be dirt. Yeah, gravel. Okay, Good.
So those three met,
You know
enough
how
of
I
the,
feel about those. How much did it cost us for the study to tell us what?
what was it, 800, I think. 800 and change, I think, to look at these four intersections.
That's not bad. That's not.
Action item to say, yes, go put
Yes.
four-way stops up.
Yes, it is.
And when you do that, send us pictures of the flashing warning sign that says four-way stop ahead. So when people call and say, oh, you need the warning sign to tell me, it's like, there was. You just slept through it.
Well, there probably won't be a flashing picture. We weren't anticipating put up flashing LEDs on these, we were just putting the regular stop sign. And so you won't have the flashing warning, you'll have the flags on the stuff ahead saying, well, just to bring notice to it, so. We've had at least the two flags on most of the stop ahead signs and on the stop signs for the first few months.
Yeah, they recommended leaving those up for 6 months after the signs were
Yeah.
installed. So.
And then there, doesn't that say always stop underneath the stop sign or something, or that?
Yeah.
All the way, so.
That is
You said?
current MUTCD
So.
all the way,
Yeah.
yeah.
So when do you think those will be?
Can have them put up by next week, probably.
We need to make sure it's off the snow that they.
Electronic warning signs for the first week to tell people that there's a freaking four-way stop coming where they didn't ever used to have one. I know, but
We don't have any,
I
I'm proposing to get a couple of those message boards in next year's budget, they're about $20,000 a piece.
it's a cost to rent them for a week from
2,000.
I think it was
2,000 to rent for a week.
each.
each,
For like, even I better buy than that during the election.
to buy them is about
Oh, yeah.
close to 20,000, but to rent them.
We can send a sign twirler out there.
Yeah.
Probably get somebody to pay attention.
Twirling, juggling flaming bowling balls or bowling things.
We don't need more extra.
Yeah, really. Okay, I make a motion that in accordance with the four-ways or the all-way stop control analysis. That we install the four-way stops at First or 49th South and 45th East, 65th South on Ammon Road. And 15th East and 65th North.
My second. Thank you for. That up. Yes. Now, coming to a neighborhood near you.
We can let Brad Clemens know.
Yeah, we've had really good response on all the road stuff. You guys are getting that on social media.
Okay. For your information, we did get an update on our bridges. We are supposed to be paving 33rd on the. Or the waterproofing is on the 15th and the 16th. They evidently get the waterproofing machine fixed.
Oh,
So they'll do waterproofing on the 15th and 16th and paving on the 21st or the 20th or
20th
21st.
and 21st.
And then 129th South will follow directly behind there. 49th North or 49th South Bridge, the girders were installed. Late last week, but they don't know the time frame for the rest of the information there yet. So
two by the end of next week.
by the 23rd, they're anticipating traffic on 33rd South and 129th South.
And county line, the bridges are done, I think.
The county line, they have a little bit of cleanup and stuff left, but it is open to traffic.
Okay.
Then they're still not hauling gravel out of Mount Rainier.
No, their loader operator died. Bateman's. I don't know, Jake Stuckey, I don't know if you saw that on the obituaries, he was 35. He was their loader operator and he died last Saturday, just collapsed in his yard. So they were looking for a new loader operator before they could start working again.
They had one loader doing all those 300 trucks a day.
Short haul.
Yeah.
Yeah, but one guy loading all those trucks, that is.
So, yeah, they're trying to figure that out and said they'd probably start next Monday or Tuesday. I drove out there. So either yesterday or Monday to see if they'd started and look what the road looked like. That
They
road
haven't
already
fixed it.
settled quite a bit, even from when the county was putting the gravel out
Yeah,
there.
I passed that on to Ray and he evidently has passed it on to Megan. So I haven't seen any work out there.
I asked the deputy that lives out there to report the condition on it every time he drives through there. You guys are probably going out there at least weekly or something like that.
Yeah, we've been going out at least once a week.
I had to go out for something else, so I saw it right back through there.
Well, apparently the 105th one works really well because they ran it full of water and then it emptied really fast after they shut the water off.
So
55th.
55th.
Yeah.
Yeah, 55th.
Yeah, it's empty
Yeah.
Yeah,
and it's dry.
yeah. Apparently that one works.
Darrell said he put in the 1,000 acre feet of water.
They negotiate on an access permit yet?
Yes, they have negotiated access permit. They haven't constructed any of it yet. But they did come in finally with some information for an access permit.
Austin.
He smiles and he doesn't smile, but he smiles.
Yeah, they are.
Being under still having signed the contract.
Yeah, I told them that, I talked to them the other day, they're supposed to send somebody in, but. Still waiting for them to get that done. Later, no, for John to take at 3 o'clock.
Oh, for the.
Anywhere real estate. Check already signed. Good. Or phone, ID and DNA.
No, they emailed me yesterday and said that they were looking for something from you, and I emailed him back and I said, what do you need? And then he said, never mind, we figured it out, so.
Okay. I just give you this the way it is.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Get a receipt.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll probably want a receipt.
Pretty sure that receipt will be one of these stacks. It's how title companies justify their existence.
Seems like everything else is set to go out, but anything else contrary, so. I did talk to the seller for the first time ever yesterday. She was pretty nice. She was worried that we weren't gonna let her in to do the repair work on the garage or the parking lot, and I said, well. Not even planning to occupy the building anytime soon, but we'll make sure you get in, so. in the escrow withholding statement, they went in and added a line that said, we won't restrict access to the building for them to do the repair work. I'm like,
If they're accomplished in a timely fashion, not
Yeah.
to let them in 5 years from now.
yeah. So.
Cool, thank you, thanks for your hard work on